So, I'm Michael.
And I'm Drew.
This is the Hour Grounds podcast, and we're back. Possibly could be going away for a while, it looks like. Sorry to say. And this episode is we're going to be talking all about how and why we're at that point. So, to kick things off, how are you doing, Drew?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and sounds like I'm not the only one. So
It's going around, isn't it?
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm more or less in the same position, but I'm going to talk about, and I want you to ask questions along the way. I'm going to talk about kind of everything in general, a summary of sort of where we're at and why we're doing what we're doing. There'll be an announcement
Sure.
in the Outward Realms channel, the Discord about that, which, by the way, is not going anywhere. That Discord is sticking around. We still have models in our inventory. The rulebook is still available. Like the original are, nothing changed, right?
Sure.
The only thing changes is future releases for the moment. So we'll start with all of that stuff first, and then talk about some kind of, at least a little piece of good news that at a high cost.
Right. Right.
So for those who don't know the story of the development of things, essentially this thing started up a few years ago. As people know, I had a novel with a background that I could use for my IP. And so I used that as the staging ground to make a miniatures game. I love minis games. Everyone knows that, right? Play a lot of 40K, play a little bit of Marvel Crisis Protocol. So those are my two go-tos. And I'm going to continue playing those games. Like that, nothing changes there. I have a lot of friends who play them, and I enjoy that aspect quite a bit.
Mm.
So, yeah. And so I wanted to make a miniatures game. I made one. Everyone knows what it is. The book is available for free. You can go look at it. There are videos online of people playing it. We had events. Like it was a real good time. What people don't know are some of the business things behind it, right? Some of the logistical issues.
Right.
One of the things I decided early on was to make everything in the U.S. This meant that my stuff did get made in a somewhat reasonable time frame and was able to get out there. The downside of that was we left a lot of manufacturing throughput off the table, right? We couldn't make retail packaging easily, and that was a hit to the stores and stuff, right? Or you want to have a nice box to put all your stuff in. It's not that we couldn't design one; we had designs. I have a prototype box sitting right there, actually. But doing it at scale in a way that makes sense in the U.S. is very difficult. And so the lead-in time for all that would have been pretty crazy. I also went with a U.S.-based manufacturer, and it is my hope that manufacturer stays in business, but they are having a pretty tough time, and it looks like they may not make it through Q1 of this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I already have tooling with them for the new thing. I have all the OR tooling and stuff is there. Obviously, I'm not a manufacturer myself, so it'd be pretty tough to get that going. I will talk a little bit more about the ramifications of that at the end. But some things that people don't know is even while we were developing all of this and doing all that stuff for the past 4 months, we went from 2 incomes in the home to 1 income. So that drained things, as you might imagine.
Fast. Yeah.
Well, plus through the holiday season, right? It's not like we weren't conservative. And It's not like we're dead broke. It's just I then had to look at that. I'm like, okay, if I'm on a single income and I'm trying to run this business and work full time and do all these things, it said, wow, and there's a recession kind of looming.
Yep.
I was like, how long would it take for this game, even if it launched well, to kind of like break even, right, and come back? And this pushes it into like the 18-month, 24-month range. And that's just like, that's not super feasible when you're dropping the kind of money that I had planned on dropping. I would have had to buy all this, even I bought a lot of tooling. I'd have to buy even more tooling and more stuff, right? I was at this, we call it, in business, there's a term called strategic inflection point. I was at a strategic inflection point where I had to look at something. There's a term called sunk cost fallacy. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. Okay, tell
Yeah.
me, tell
So
me.
sunk cost fallacy is where you keep going with something just because you've already put resources into it,
Oh, sure.
even
I
though
mean,
you have.
you could say that about any sort of grindy video game, right? Where you're like, well, this is gonna take me another 40 minutes. You're like, well, I've been doing it for 20 minutes already. Like, may as well just
Right.
keep going.
Well, and
Yep.
or eating the last half of a bag of Doritos.
Sure.
Right.
I actually did that.
Keep going.
Yeah, I
Oh
did.
man,
I did.
I gotta find a bag clip. I gotta put this thing away. That's just not happening, right?
Yep. I did that today at lunch. Actually, we had these 3 really large like chocolate dipped cookies, and I had 2, and I finished my glass of milk, and I was looking at this big bag with 1 cookie left in it, and I was like, refill the milk, have the last cookie, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right. You see,
yeah.
but it's more of a negative, right? And it's something you're supposed
Yes.
to do as a business, where you look at projects you have ongoing, and you're supposed to be emotionally divorced from the decision making process and look at it objectively,
Yep.
and say, hey, even though you've spent all this money and time, does this still make sense right now? And I did that because we reached the point where I would have had to have a big outlay just to make it to launch during this potential recession and without the funds that I would have wanted to market it correctly.
Right.
Right? So why would you launch something if you can't market it well? Doesn't make a
Yep.
lot of sense. And especially not marketing well in a time where it might be tougher to make money than normal.
Yep.
That seems like a really bad decision.
This
Right?
happens. Yeah, this happens a lot in the film industry as well. There's a lot of really good films out there that like receive no um oh my god, we were just talking about it. The word escapes me. No marketing.
Yeah.
You don't know that it came out. People ask about it and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that came out a couple months ago." And I'm like, "Oh man, I really wanted to see that."
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Like, yeah. So this happens all the time in that industry, and it's really sad when it happens in a gaming industry, right? Because there's people who are looking for product or wanting the next big thing, right, for their new favorite faction and all
Of
that.
course.
So,
I mean, not just Shadow War, but I mean, like the whole new game launch. I have people who are working for me, right? And
mhm.
they're not working for
Yep.
me anymore, right? I was
Yeah.
a job creator, which is kind of nice.
You were doing it. You were doing it.
I was doing the thing, but I had to look at it, and I don't want this thing to just die or fail badly.
Of
And I
course.
felt like I was setting myself up for failure. So I put everything on hiatus, all of it. There'll be an announcement in the Discord channel that I'll post immediately after this podcast is done for people who miss it. But we are the long and the short of it is due to those reasons, we are on hiatus. I will look at it. I am not going to. I may not even communicate the position that I feel, but I'm going to look at it in June, and then and if nothing has changed, I'm going to look at it at the end of the year. It's not just going away because 80% of this game is done. We have 3D models, we have logos, we have artwork engines, we have lots of artwork, we have the rules, right? We've got, I
Yep.
mean, bases and stands and all this stuff, right? We have all these things, and it would feel kind of silly to throw that away. There is one additional factor which I want to talk about real quick, and that's this ACTA, a call to arms, the thing we nicknamed it, is actually a product owned by Mongoose Publishing, which is a UK-based company. It's been around for a long time. If we relaunch this game, it will not be called that, and there will not be a link with Mongoose. So that will
Interesting.
go
Okay.
away. I licensed the game for a certain length of time.
Of course.
And I will be allowing that license to lapse, and it will not have a call to arms attached to it. We could very easily call it something like Our Realm's Fleet Commander or something.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and
Okay.
nothing would have to change really with anything else we're doing. We departed so far from their original game engine that I don't. That's not really.
It wouldn't be hard to just put a rebrand on it.
Well, I mean, like, no, I'm saying it's easy to put a rebrand on it because we're not
Oh yeah.
really, we're not really
That's what I
using
meant.
any of their stuff.
Yep.
anymore. So, and I
Okay.
really appreciate that they took us seriously and gave us that opportunity. That means a lot. Thanks to Matthew and the Mongoose folks. But if we ever launch, it will be called something else. There will be no association with them. We'll do a lot of things right. We'll market it well. We'll have retail boxes. We'll probably have to do things in China. So,
And got to be honest with you, man. It's I mean, living in California and the cost of living expenses out here, things are pretty nasty. Even
is
even
it
for
expensive?
someone,
Did
even
you
for
notice?
someone, even for someone well off, right, or a family that's well off, it's still it's still really tough. And so I commend you, Mike, for making this decision. It's not a decision that anyone can make lightly, but I think that that's also one of the best parts about this hobby is that you've got it. You're right. 80% of it is done. I could, we could get together and play this game right now, right? Anyone could go
100%.
online
Yeah, it's
and
100%.
play the game. It's all said and done. There just isn't that little
There's
bit
things
of
made for it.
Yep,
Like,
yep. What was the it's not Thomas the Tank Engine, the little engine that could, right?
yeah.
We just don't have enough to, I think I can, and then you suddenly realize you're falling backwards down the hill, and you're like, come on, no. So,
No, let's do it right if we do it, right?
yep,
And
exactly.
that puts everything else on pause for people who, we have Shadow War rules that have been looked at by playtesters. We have the models, right? Like that stuff is done. But to release it, you need a manufacturer. And actually, with OR, it's more complex because
Yep.
if we continued on that path, I would actually have to repay the tooling costs for manufacture somewhere else.
Right, because you'd have to go through a different company then to ask
Right.
them to.
So
Yep,
I'd
yep.
basically be repaying to launch OR just to launch Shadow War, which is not impossible if the space game, a now untitled space game, went well, right?
Yep,
If that
yep,
did okay, I could afford just do it all the same time. But that's a pretty big roll of the dice. And if you're going to roll those dice, you want to give yourself the best odds possible.
yep,
That means marketing budget. That means doing it right. So
yep.
since I can't do those things, it's not happening right now. That's not to say that, hey, who knows? Things change in the future. Economies get better. People get jobs. People's jobs make more money.
Yep.
Things happen, right? So it's not impossible. But right now, it's just not a good idea.
Right.
And the things that are staying are the Discord, because a lot of people bought OR and play it. That's not going anywhere. And actually, I think that this is sad, but if our manufacturer goes out of business, and I don't want him to, I love that business and I want them to stay afloat and do well.
Of
Um,
course.
I think those that style thing is critical and important to stay. But if they do, if they go out, my commitment is going to be I think OR changes in a sense because I don't want the game to die. In fact, I want more people to play it. How about that?
Sure.
So I'm going to build. If they go out of business, that is that must happen, right? For
Right.
this whole thing to happen. I mean, well, okay, let's put it this way. That has to happen. Basically, that's what I'm waiting for. If they do, and I don't want them to, but if they do, I will build a digital product for our 3D files, and I will release that for OR so people can 3D print their own.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. And is there a world where, so for example, right? And I know that like Games Workshop does a lot of their manufacturing like in house or in places
Most
that
of
they
it.
buy,
In fact,
right?
actually, I think all of it now is all
Yes.
house.
Yep. And I do remember back when the pandemic first happened, um, a lot of these other companies for other games, right? And of course, I guess this is my thoughts on like FFG at the time, who owned Star Wars Armada and X-wing. They had to outsource making. They had to outsource to other companies to get their stuff printed or
Yeah,
created, right? Like their products
yeah.
made. Um, is there a world in which your manufacturer for OR, because they aren't manufacturing OR anymore, they can manufacture things from other companies to stay
They already
alive?
they already do. They're
They
not
already do. Okay.
us. We're
Of
just a
course, of
small
course.
part of their business.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
Yeah, I
so,
can't talk about the things they make
oh
on this
sure,
podcast. I'm
no, no,
not.
no.
I signed an
Yeah,
NDA.
No, of
But
course, of course.
um, they make things. They make their large portions of their business. They make things that are not gaming related.
Cool.
They make
Um,
other stuff. So it's
s-
those markets slowing down that have caused this. We're just a small part of the whole.
Got it. Yeah, and so that was my I lead up to my real question, which was, is there a world in which they stay afloat and you go through a different manufacturer?
I don't see a world where
Something
unless I launched
totally.
the second game and then made a bunch of money and paid for tooling somewhere else. I think the road for OR with them is we as long as they keep making models for us or are able to make models for us, I think we can keep selling them. We do sell some, right? I mean,
Sure.
we have some sales on the store,
Right.
but I wonder. I have to make some choices about how I want that to progress, how I want that to push forward,
Of
right?
course.
And
Absolutely.
I'm kind of using their situation as an impetus to make my decision. You're right. If that doesn't change, I should still reassess it, and I'll do so
Okay.
I'll do so later
Oh yeah,
when I'm
no, of
done
course.
all out of this. I had to basically fire people today or today and yesterday,
Yeah,
and like do
that's
all that stuff, and it's not fun.
right. Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I have to make this announcement, and it's not great news. You don't want to hear it, but it is true, and I'm like I said, I've always tried to be honest and transparent with everyone on how all this works.
Of
So
course. And there is that level of difference between, like, I my brother just sent me a meme the other day of, it's a scene from The Simpsons, and I can't remember the character, but he's in an office and he's talking to his would-be supervisor, right? And he's like, "Why did you guys said, um, have and I'm paraphrasing here. We're actively removing you and to have a nice day." And then the supervisor leans over and goes, "I don't remember telling you to have a nice day."
right,
And it's just like, oh god. So it's like there is that level of firing someone because they're not good at their job or they're unnecessary or unneeded, as opposed to firing someone because there just isn't any money left, and you're like, hey, right, like, keep doing what you're doing. When I have the funds, or if we come back around to this, like, you're going to be at the top of my list, because, right, like,
yep, yeah, absolutely, and that's the hope, right? I hope that
yeah,
we have an opportunity to do better in the future, right?
of course.
So original OR stays, and my goal for this year for it is to try to find a um, local convention or some way to have like a nice event for people who are local and get in some games. I mean, I still have a lot of terrain. I could still run an event, right?
Oh, of course.
Get
Yeah,
people
you've got
playing the game, right? And that's
multiple armies and all that. Yeah, it's all
course,
there.
of course, get people playing a little bit, and it would be pretty cool. I don't want people to think it's gone, right? So that's my goal for this year is assess this things well, and then try to run something, right? Just get a few folks together, throw some tables together, get them playing like they played before, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So
Okay.
I think those are good goals. And who knows? Maybe it becomes a situation where we have that 3D offering and we get a whole bunch of new people, right?
It's true. I know that they're like, it's weird too, because like the 3D market is so interesting, where there's a lot of people that I've seen that are like all over it, and then there's a lot of people who are still like nervous about it and whether or
Well,
not
then
they
they
want
can
to
buy
like
our individual
dive
models,
in.
right? We have an inventory of them. So if they don't want to
Right.
print themselves, we actually have the thing,
Yeah,
right?
no, of course, of course.
Yeah.
But there is that's a whole nother ball game's worth of like new business idea, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I don't expect a ton from it. It's not about making the money from it. It's more about keeping the growing the group of people, right? Growing
growing
the
the community. Yep,
yeah.
yep. Giving them access to to what they
Absolutely,
want.
and I think there are people who are just like, I will definitely spend a bottle of resin to print out one of these armies, and you know, play this rule book online.
Play, yeah, get it, yeah, play it. Yeah, no,
I
100%.
hope
Okay.
so. I
Yeah.
hope, so. And we'll see if we go that direction. I should know more in like March, is my guess. So
Okay. But there
And let's
won't be
not
a
forget, this has a
we
really high cost to somebody, and his business not doing well, right?
Of course, right. So then the question is too, and I know that you just previously mentioned this. This is our last episode
For now,
for now. For now.
if we come to a point where things resume, this will come back, and we'll talk about it, and hopefully there's a cool story, a comeback story. People like a comeback story, right? A cool
It's true.
story where things have changed and we're ready, right? That's my
Right.
goal.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we've talked about lore. Mostly we talked about products and events coming up, and I don't think we need this to do that very often. So no, uh, but that's the point of this episode, is to discuss that stuff and be
Sure.
transparent, right?
Of course. And so then I have another question:
Yeah.
is if we do come back,
Mhm.
if OR does able to come back, question is, will the podcast still be featured on I can't remember the website that
Best in
we're on.
tabletop,
The
of
Best
course.
in Tabletop.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have a permanent slot with Best in Tabletop.
Okay.
They're pleased to have us back. In fact, I should give them some love. So
Yeah.
they're doing great work in the 40K space. They're going to be adding more content for other games going, as time goes on. They already make really great battle reports. They have just the coverage of 40K that they provide. They have 4 awesome podcasts about it, in covering areas that no one else covers. Right, like Frontiers covers non-US 40K. If you want to know about Australia, Africa, Asia, if you want to know what they're up to, they talk to those people, which is great.
That's that's crazy. That's
Yeah, do
awesome.
you know
Okay.
that the biggest 40K event not in the United States is in Spain?
Is it? Yeah, I did know that actually. But I just
The
scrolling
Vaz
on
de
Facebook.
Horace, Vaz de
Yeah.
Horace,
Hmm.
750 people.
Oh man.
Yeah. The Voz de la Horace podcast, I obviously can't understand it in Spanish. I mean, I shouldn't say obviously. There was a time where I knew Spanish fairly decently, actually, but I don't
Mhm.
have it. It fell out of my brain.
Sure.
Like 20,
It's been
20
it's
plus.
been replaced with space frogs and amoebas and
Yeah, yeah. I watched her cut it out and
yep.
ran away with it.
Yep.
Things. No, the the Voz de la Horace podcast is actually, they have a professional radio DJ do it, and it's one of the people
Wow.
who does the soccer announcements. So it's like the quality level
Oh.
is really high.
Oh, that's so cool.
You should just listen to it just to hear the cadence and professionalism of like a radio level broadcast doing 40K in Spanish,
Yeah.
but still quite good.
Radio level,
Yeah,
man.
Frontiers does that. They have, of course, Biff Pod, which is the original podcast with the three hosts. Um, and then you have the Next Generation, which is new people, young people, 20-year-olds who are great at 40K and just out there killing it right now. And they have their own podcast, and the stuff they think about and the analysis they give is top notch.
That's so
I mean, they
cool.
have the energy to stand at a table for 9 games.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the
Imagine,
biggest.
imagine the strength to do that, right?
Mhm. That is. I remember. I used to be that. You saw me. That was back when I was playing X-wing,
I know.
sitting there, pacing from side to
Moving,
side. Yep.
moving,
Yep.
moving your little phantom around, precision
I
style.
I don't know if I ever told you that, Tippy. So when I was on the stream for Worlds for X-wing back in 2015, um, a couple of my friends could not see who was playing, but they were looking at the list and they were like, that kind of looks like Drew's list. And then they noticed that the player playing the list was pacing back and forth,
It's
and they were
definitely,
like, that's Drew. And it was me. It was
it
very
is you.
funny. Yeah.
You're on YouTube. People can watch one of your
Yeah,
games.
you can watch me lose. It's great. It's
Oh.
fun. Sorry, spoiler alert. But it was great.
Spoiler alert.
But no,
Well, otherwise we would have been like world's champion at X-wing Drew.
world's what? Yeah, I mean,
Can we
what
call
is
you,
a
can we
champ
call you
if
world's contender?
huh?
Can we call you world's contender?
World's
You were a
contender.
contender.
I could have been a contender. I
How
guess
many how many people have seen On the Waterfront outside of our age group? Like, come on, what are we doing here?
I have not, so I can tell you that
Right.
right
Yeah, you know
now.
the
I'm
quote. You haven't even
sorry.
seen the movie. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep,
Uh,
yep.
it's a good movie, by the way. So
So
the go ahead. What were you saying?
I'm so sorry. So my next question is then, okay, so um oh my gosh, I keep forgetting this word. Getting OR out there,
Yeah,
right?
building the community.
What
Marketing.
is maybe one marketing? What is maybe one thing that you wanted to do for OR that you weren't able to do?
I wish that I could have had retail packaging
Retail packaging? Okay, okay. Yeah, that
because
I
I
mean,
would have had a lot of local stores stock it, and that would have helped, right? And it
yes,
just raises the
absolutely.
professionalism of the product, right? And it wasn't that
Yes.
we didn't design it. Believe me, it was designed. It's that economies of scale made it hard to make, right?
Right. And it's so interesting too to talk about like this packaging in general. I have seen so many people across so many different games, 40K, Star Wars Legion, Malifaux, where people just like they'll take it out and they're like, all right, cool, I built these models, and then it's like, all right, time to throw all the boxes, everything, thrown away,
Yeah,
gone, and then
yeah,
when the box isn't there, there are I've heard of some people just being kind of like upset about it, and I'm just sort of like,
yeah.
is it that I don't know, what is it about opening, like, have the thing,
Man,
but then
Christmas has
it's
done well for so long. We know about opening boxes.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Come on.
it's
But it's a lot of things, right? A box is
sure,
an advertisement for the product in the store.
yep,
It's a safe way to get it from point A to point B, right? I mean, there's
very
facts.
true,
You're showing people what the models could look like. You're giving them some inspiration. You
right,
might be giving a little bit of story on the back.
hmm,
Um, there's a lot of factors there. So it
yeah,
was important, and the fact that we couldn't get over that hurdle was a big negative, in my opinion.
of course, yeah, no, 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 especially with each army having what, 6 or 7 units each,
I mean, at least six.
at
Two,
least
six,
6,
or seven. Hold on one
sure.
second. I will get the box.
You want to grab the box? I was gonna ask you about that. I felt kind of awkward. It's like, ooh, we're gonna see it. What would the packaging have looked like? I'm sorry for those in the know on YouTube. We have a leak in our window that my neighbor just patched up. And of course, we're going through like one of the largest storms in the history of our. Is it? Oh, well, I'll ask Mike. I don't know. I've heard this storm is monumental. Last night, though, man, wife and I were hearing noises we've never heard in California before at night,
Woo! It was
like with the
exciting.
storm. It was cool. I was at one point I kind of like looked over at her and she was sitting there staring at me and was like, "Yep, this is happening." Is it the worst
Just,
storm that we've
just,
seen in
just to
California in a long
prove,
time? Or oh
just to prove
wow,
that we did the thing. The blurring is killing it here.
the blurring is killing. It's censored. It's censored. This is the
I mean, we really did try.
wow.
We really did try,
That's for
right?
the realm tank, right?
Hold on. Maybe there's a way to disable this blurring, however temporarily, so that
Yep, yep, yep.
we can say none. Here we go. Let's try this.
We're gonna figure out where you live based on the lamp at the top of your roof there.
Yeah, yeah. You have
Yep.
fun with that. My address is actually my mailing address is widely available. But yeah, so like, look, we actually did the
Wow,
thing, like,
that looks good. I like that.
yeah, me too, right? And so
Okay.
we showed the models. We had a little bit of story. We basically gave all of it, right?
Yeah, you got the QR code on it too.
Yep, and then just takes you to the site.
Got
Yeah.
the sweet artwork on the front there.
Yeah. So like I want people to know that we really tried, right? We really gave it a shot.
Sure.
Yeah. It
And
was
that
just the economies of scale.
right, and like there's the other thing too, packaging as well is so vastly different, right? Like you look at a box from Games Workshop and it's just like the basic cardboard, right? Like, someone sat on it, sure. But the larger models, they've got like a little pull-out tray, which is kind of interesting. I don't think I've seen that recently within the last few years.
Right.
And then you look at Star Wars Legion. Star Wars Legion has the box very similar looking to yours, but on the inside they have a like a cardboard insert.
Yep.
almost like a skeletal structure to hold
Yep.
it together to protect the models inside of it, which is also something that I hadn't seen until Star Wars Legion had done
Yeah.
it. Of course, I'm not that big of a miniatures guy, but I was just interested. I was amazed at
I mean,
how
you're only big miniatures guy. You play all the stegosaurs in AOS.
I do all the stompy stompy.
What do you have?
Although maybe this is where I'm coming from, because most of my stompy stompy was secondhand. So
Mm,
I didn't have boxes. I had USPS boxes that right with the foam, and oh, there's a dinosaur in this ball. There's a dinosaur in here somewhere. Let me unwrap it, right? Like,
yeah.
but either way, yeah. So I'm sorry to keep bringing up the packaging, but
No, it's important. It's the thing that I wanted that we didn't get to do.
it is super interesting to think about, right? Like
Yeah.
you think of it's I atone it to, like, okay, so I know that you're married, right? I'm married, a couple of my friends are married, and you always talk about the wedding day, and you always talk about you really only remember the people that didn't go, that you asked to go. But
Mm,
you, right? So it's like you only remember the products that you bought that didn't have a box, as
right.
opposed to the products that did have a
Yeah,
box, I
that's
guess. So,
exactly. No, it's funny.
mhm,
There's something to that.
yeah.
So, but yeah, do you have any other questions?
Any other questions? No, I don't think so. I think the only other thing, and there's the other, I guess that's another question, is truly is despite the fact that there isn't going to be anything else as far as it goes at the moment.
That's right.
um we
I'm calling it hiatus.
calling it hiatus at the moment. um we do know, is there anything else that you have lying around as far as like artwork or things go that you're maybe sitting on for that potential, like, oh, here's the book release, right? Because I think it'd be fun to see in the Discord, like, here, oh, here's a image of like the Ursas or whatever, right? Like, or
Sure.
here's a shot of a couple of stuff.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
save things for if we ever get to release it. Like
of course.
there's no value in losing out on that
The
work that's
reveal factor.
yeah, it's worth it to
Yeah.
save it. I mean, that's another way of saying it's not going anywhere. I'm hoping that all that work comes to fruition, perhaps later than I wanted, but at some time.
Of course. Oh, and the one last thing I did want to say too, and and
Yes.
and I know that I'm beating this dead horse again, man. Always. Um, your lovely manufacturer, the people that have
Yeah.
helped you make this,
Yeah.
um, they are not going out of business because of the car accident into the building, right?
It has nothing to do with it, I hope.
Okay, cool, excellent. I hope so too. I was pretty sure it was, because usually
Yeah.
companies like that will rent out the building, so it's not really, you know,
Yeah, no, I don't think it's related to the car.
right.
I think it's a market slowdown that across such a number of sectors that they just can't make up the
They
shortfall.
can't. Yep. Nope. And that's
Myself included, right? Like I'm not putting in giant orders all the time, right?
very true. Very true.
I'm not
Mhm.
helping this cause. It would have helped if I
Right.
launched a game, but that's only a temporary reprieve, right? You just make a bunch of models, and then what do you do after that, right?
Yep. Even then, and that's the other thing too, right? Like, product has to move in order for there to be an ask for more product, right?
Right.
Like,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's basic business. But yeah,
Mhm.
so we'll see what the future holds. Obviously, I'm going to be in the Discord. It's not going anywhere. And the next news for OR that's probably relevant will be around February or March.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And we'll see where we're at. And that will be checking with my manufacturer to see what the future of that looks like. And if it does not improve from its current state, I will work on that offering for those files.
The files, of course. And
Yeah.
and I know that I mentioned this before. We won't be doing another podcast for any kind of update on
No,
that.
we won't do a podcast unless we come back.
Okay. Sure. Of
So,
course.
so don't remove us from your feeds if you haven't subscribed. Keep us there. It'll just be quiet for a while. Is a hope, right?
Of course. It'll be the. So we've heard the Nafal are coming. So we're gonna go radio silent, just
Oh,
just
yeah, that's
just
right.
for a little bit.
We've detected them. They're on their. Well, if we've detected them, they're in great trouble anyway. But
Yeah, right. No, exactly. There.
we're currently negotiating with a queenling for our surrender.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
that's not. Wow, what a negotiation that would be. I mean, I don't speak chittering noises.
Right. I mean, we just what was the line from Natalie Portman? It's a good aggressive negotiations, right?
That's right.
Like,
That's right. All right, everybody. Well, it's been great. Thank you, Drew, for your time as always.
absolutely.
You're awesome. And I
Y-
know that I hopefully I will be seeing you to play some Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, soon. I'm actually, so just a quick update on that. The Seraphon are getting a new book at some point, very soon,
Ooh.
supposedly. So I got to be honest with you, I'm going to my probably the last tournament this Sunday,
Okay.
until the new book comes out, and I'll be trying to work on. My wife is at work at the moment, so she doesn't know. I'm trying to paint her army for her, unknowns to her,
Mm,
unknown to her, so that when the new book drops and we're getting a new edition or a
yeah,
new GHB for the next
sure.
6 months. Yeah, I really want her to join us, and she's told me she won't play unless everything's painted. So I'm gonna secretly paint everything,
I'm
so
in the
she
same
can't
boat.
say
I don't
no.
want to play unless it's all painted too. So
Yeah. So, all right, man. Thank you so much. I'd love to support you in
thank
any way I
you.
can, and
And
I'm looking
I
forward to
want to
coming
see you
back.
around for gaming. I would like to see more of Drew. I
Yeah,
know you're busy, but keep in touch.
absolutely, will do.
All right,
And you as
everybody.
well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see ya.